The Galactic Council had seen thousands of species rise and fall. They had welcomed countless civilizations into their great cosmic alliance, guiding them like parents guiding children. When their long-range probes discovered Earth, they'd barely paid attention. Just another primitive species, just another world waiting to be civilized. A diplomatic envoy was sent, a massive council dreadnought, sleek and shimmering with energy shields, escorted by a few warships, just in case. Their mission? To inform humanity that they were now part of the Galactic Council. No negotiations, no questions, just submission. The message was simple. You are now under the protection and rule of the Galactic Council. Refusal will not be tolerated. The humans' response was even simpler. No. At first, the Council thought it was a mistake, perhaps a translation error, but when the human diplomats stood firm, rejecting all demands, the Council's representative, High Consul Viric, laughed. You must not understand, he said, his voice smooth yet condescending. Your species has no place to resist. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. Your ships are like insects before us. Your armies are nothing. You have no choice but to accept. But the humans did not flinch. Their lead diplomat, a calm and collected woman named Ambassador Rachel Carter, simply smiled. We understand just fine. Do you? Then, something happened that no one expected. The human fleet arrived. It was not a large fleet, at least not compared to the grand armadas of the Council. The Council ships were sleek, elegant, and powered by energy-based technology that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The human ships, on the other hand, were rugged, metallic beasts, thick armor plating, massive railguns, missile silos, and strange, boxy designs that lacked the grace of the Council's vessels. The Council officers watching the display screen smirked. Primitive, one muttered. They still use kinetic weapons. They don't even have energy shields, another laughed. Viric sighed, shaking his head. What a waste of time. He turned to Ambassador Carter and gave her a pitying look. Do you see now? Your ships are nothing compared to ours. You cannot. Alarms blared across the Council fleet. Something was wrong. The human ships moved strangely, unpredictably. Instead of forming neat, orderly battle lines, like the Council had seen in 1,000 wars, they scattered, darting in and out like predators circling prey. Their primitive kinetic weapons launched, massive tungsten slugs traveling at near-light speed. The first Council ship shattered instantly. The bridge of Viric's dreadnought fell silent. His officers stared in horror as another Council warship exploded, its energy shields useless against the sheer force of human weaponry. The humans did not fight like the other species the Council had encountered. They were faster, more aggressive. Their tactics were unpredictable. Viric turned back to the human ambassador, his voice shaking. What? What are you? Carter's smile widened. Humans. The Galactic Council was in shock. Never before had a species resisted their authority like this. Never before had an enemy torn through their warships so easily. High Consul Viric sat in his command chair, his hands gripping the armrests tightly. His officers were pale, their eyes fixed on the burning wreckage of Council ships floating in space. The humans had destroyed them in minutes. Minutes. This is impossible, one officer whispered. Viric clenched his jaw. No, it was not impossible. It was a fluke, a mistake. The humans had gotten lucky. That was all. Send a full analysis to the Council, he ordered. We need reinforcements. These creatures must be put in their place. The officers quickly obeyed, sending data back to the Council's homeworld. But as they reviewed the battle, something became clear, something terrifying. The humans were not lucky. They were smart. Their ships, though lacking energy shields, were heavily armored. Their weapons, though not based on plasma or energy beams, were devastatingly effective. The humans did not fight like the disciplined, orderly fleets of the Galactic Council. They fought like hunters, unpredictable, adaptable, Ruthless. Viric's mind raced. How? How can they be so advanced in war, but so primitive in technology? The answer came from a quiet, nervous officer. Sir, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They have perfected the art of battle. Silence filled the bridge. Wars were rare in the Galactic Council. Most species evolved past violence. When disputes arose, they were settled through diplomacy or minor skirmishes, not total war. The Council fleets were built for control, not destruction. They were used to enforcing peace, not fighting for survival. Humans were different. For them, war was not a last resort. It was part of their history, their nature. While the Council had spent centuries in peace, humanity had been perfecting the science of killing. Viric refused to believe it. No, they are still weak. They are still nothing. Our real fleet will crush them. The Council responded quickly, deploying more warships. A fleet 10 times larger than before was assembled. The best strategists, the strongest ships, the most powerful weapons, all sent to make an example of humanity. Back on Earth, the humans watched the incoming fleet with calm, calculating eyes. The military leaders gathered, analyzing every detail. The enemy was bigger, stronger, and had more resources. But that didn't matter, because humans had something the Council would never understand. Survival. Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the holographic display of the approaching enemy. He smirked. "They think numbers will save them," he muttered. Beside him, an officer chuckled. "They don't understand, sir. This isn't their kind of war." Hayes nodded. "No, this is our kind of war." The Galactic Council's new fleet arrived in full force. Hundreds of warships, larger and more powerful than before, moved into formation outside Earth's solar system. Their weapons gleamed, their energy shields shimmered, and their commanders were confident. They had studied the first battle. They had adjusted their tactics. This time, the humans would not be so lucky. High Consul Viric, now leading the operation from his command ship, smirked as he watched his fleet surround the Terran defense forces. "Now, humans," he muttered, "let's see how you handle true power." On the other side, Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood on the bridge of the TDS Warspite. His arms crossed as he studied the enemy fleet. The Council had come in greater numbers this time. It didn't matter. Numbers alone didn't win wars. "All ships prepare for combat," Hayes ordered. "Stick to the plan." The Council fleet advanced, their ships moving in perfect formation. Their commanders believed in order, in structure, in disciplined tactics. Their strategy was simple: use superior numbers to overwhelm the human fleet. But humans didn't fight like that. Suddenly, the Terran fleet scattered. Instead of staying in formation, they split apart, moving unpredictably. Some ships charged forward, others fell back. It was chaos, or so it seemed. Viric frowned. "They're disorganized," one of his officers said, relieved. "They're panicking." Viric wasn't so sure. Something felt wrong. Then the first human shots were fired. Railguns, the size of skyscrapers, launched high-speed projectiles across the void. The kinetic slugs tore through the Council's shields like paper, smashing into their hulls with devastating force. Several Council ships exploded instantly. Others spun out of control, their engines crippled. Missiles followed, weaving through space like hunting beasts. The Council's point defense systems struggled to shoot them down, but human technology was deceptive. Each missile carried smaller warheads inside. When one was destroyed, it split into many, continuing its deadly path. The Council fleet was in trouble. Shields failing. Hull breaches on multiple decks. A panicked officer shouted. Viric gritted his teeth. "Regroup. Focus fire on their largest ships." But the humans refused to fight their way. Instead of staying in place, they moved constantly. Their smaller ships darted between the Council's heavy cruisers, hitting weak points with terrifying accuracy. For every human ship destroyed, 3 Council ships fell. Varric's confidence turned to rage. How are they doing this? On the Warspite, Hayes watched the battle unfold with cold efficiency. The Council was struggling. They weren't used to adapting in the middle of a fight. Humans, however, thrived in chaos. Push forward, Hayes ordered. Crush them. The Terran fleet surged ahead, overwhelming the Council forces. Varric watched in horror as his mighty armada crumbled. For the first time in history, the Galactic Council knew fear. And humanity. They were just getting started. High Consul Varric sat in the ruins of his once mighty fleet, his hands trembling. The battle had not just been a defeat, it had been a massacre. The humans had torn through the Council's forces like hunters cutting down prey. He could still hear the screams of his officers, still see the burning wreckage of warships drifting in space. His dreadnought, once a symbol of power, barely managed to escape. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now they needed answers. On the Council's homeworld, an emergency meeting was held. The greatest minds of the galaxy gathered, scientists, strategists, admirals, trying to understand what had gone wrong. How did they defeat us? One senator demanded. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships have no energy shields. Another protested. A nervous intelligence officer stepped forward. It's not their technology, he said. It's them. The room fell silent. The officer took a deep breath and displayed a holographic report. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, he explained. Unlike us, they'd never stopped. Even when they advanced, even when they built great civilizations, war remained a part of their existence. The Council members frowned. Most species evolved past violence. Once they reached a certain level of intelligence, they abandoned war, choosing peace and diplomacy instead. Humans were different. They learned from war. They adapted. Every time they fought, they became stronger, the officer continued. Wars that lasted for centuries. Battles that wiped out entire nations. Weapons designed only for destruction. But the most terrifying thing, they do not fight for territory. They do not fight for resources. They fight to win, at any cost. The Council members exchanged uneasy glances. So, they are savages? One senator asked. The officer shook his head. No, they are survivors. Meanwhile, deep in a hidden research station, the Council had sent spies to study Earth. What they found was even more terrifying than the battle reports. They saw humans training in brutal conditions, soldiers pushing their bodies beyond limits, learning to fight in every environment possible. They discovered history books filled with stories of war, generals who outsmarted armies 10 times their size, tactics that had defeated overwhelming enemies. They watched human children play games of strategy, learning how to outthink opponents before they could even read. And then there was their technology. It looked outdated, but it wasn't. It was built for war. Humans didn't rely on energy shields because they didn't need them. They had armor that could withstand direct hits. Their weapons were designed not just to destroy, but to cripple enemies beyond repair. The spies sent their final report. One chilling sentence echoed across the Council chambers. We are not fighting a species that wants peace. We are fighting a species that was born for war. And the worst part, humanity had only just begun. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The destruction of their fleet had shaken them to the core. The greatest powers of the galaxy, rulers of thousands of worlds, had been humiliated by a species they once considered insignificant. Now they had a choice: accept that humanity was an equal power or prepare for total war. High Consul Varric stood before the Council, his face pale, but his voice firm. We cannot ignore this threat. Humans are not like other species. They are not diplomats, not explorers. They are warriors. If we do not act now, they will become unstoppable. Many senators murmured in agreement, but others hesitated. We attacked them first, one senator reminded. We gave them no choice but to fight. That does not matter. Varric snapped. Look at the reports. They think differently. They fight differently. They were ready for war before they even knew we existed. The Council reviewed the intelligence gathered by their spies on Earth. They saw records of human wars, conflicts that had lasted centuries, strategies that had turned weak nations into global superpowers. They saw the rise and fall of empires, each one more advanced than the last, each one learning from the mistakes of the past. They saw a history filled with destruction, but also survival. Humans do not lose wars the way we do, a military analyst explained. When they are defeated, they do not surrender. They adapt. They evolve. Every loss makes them stronger. The Council had always believed that superior technology meant victory, but humans had proven that tactics, strategy, and sheer determination mattered more. And then, the final revelation came. The fleet we fought was not even their full strength, the analyst revealed. We have confirmed that humanity has more ships, many more, and they are building more every day. Gasps filled the chamber. How many? A senator asked, his voice shaking. The analyst hesitated, then answered, enough to challenge our entire empire. Panic spread through the Council. The Galactic Armada had been considered invincible for centuries. No species had ever stood against it and survived. Yet humans had not only survived, they had won. Now the Council had to face the truth. Humanity was not just another species. They were a new power in the galaxy. And the worst part, they weren't afraid of war. As the Council argued over their next move, a single message was transmitted from the Terran Defense Fleet. It was from Admiral Jonathan Hayes, the man who had led humanity's forces to victory. The message was simple. We do not seek war, but if you bring it to us again, we will end it. The Council fell silent. For the first time in history, they had met an enemy they could not intimidate, and they had no idea what to do next. Fears spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. The defeat at the hands of humanity was not just a military loss, it was a warning. They had underestimated humans once. They would not make the same mistake again. High Consul Virik stood in the council chamber, his face grim. The other leaders of the galaxy were shouting, arguing over what to do next. We must strike first, before they grow even stronger. One senator demanded. No, we must negotiate. They offered peace. Another countered. Virik remained silent, his mind racing. The reports were clear. Humanity was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. They did not fight for conquest, nor did they crumble under pressure. They adapted, they learned, and worst of all, they thrived in war. We do not seek war, but if you bring it to us again, we will end it. The words of Admiral Jonathan Hayes echoed in his mind. The message had been calm, almost casual, but it carried a clear warning. Humanity was not afraid of them. We need more intelligence, Virik finally said, silencing the chamber. We do not know enough about these creatures. We must understand them before making our next move. The council agreed. And so, they sent spies. Across the galaxy, secret agents infiltrated human society. They observed their culture, their politics, their technology. And the more they learned, the more terrified they became. Humans were not united under a single rule like most species. They had different nations, different ideologies, and yet, when threatened, they stood as one. They did not fear war, but they also did not seek it. They were aggressive, yet disciplined. They were violent, yet capable of great kindness. Above all, they valued one thing above everything else: freedom. The reports flooded back to the council, and the truth became clear. If we try to control them, they will fight us until one side is completely destroyed. An intelligence officer warned. There is no middle ground. The council had never faced a species like this. In the past, they had crushed rebellions with ease. Their enemies always surrendered in the end. But humans would rather die than live under someone else's rule. High Consul Virik knew what had to be done. Send an envoy, he ordered. We will talk. For the first time in Galactic Council history, they would not be the ones demanding surrender. They would be the ones negotiating for peace. And deep in his heart, Virak wondered, had the age of the Galactic Council just ended? And had the age of humanity begun? A sleek diplomatic shuttle exited hyperspace near Earth's orbit. Unlike the massive warships of the Galactic Council, this vessel carried no weapons, only envoys sent to negotiate with humanity. For the first time in history, the Council was coming in peace. Inside the shuttle, High Consul Virak sat stiffly in his chair. He had led invasions, commanded entire fleets, and made decisions that shaped the fate of civilizations. Yet, as Earth's blue and green surface grew larger in the viewport, he felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. He turned to his diplomatic team. "Remember," he said, "we are not in control here. We must tread carefully." The ship received clearance, and moments later, it landed on a human military base. Waiting for them was a delegation of Terran officials. At the front stood Admiral Jonathan Hayes, the man who had shattered the Council's fleet. Virak studied him. The human was not physically intimidating. Shorter than most galactic species, without natural armor, without claws or fangs. And yet, there was something in his eyes. A sharpness, a quiet confidence, a warrior's gaze. Hayes stepped forward and extended his hand. "Welcome to Earth." Virak hesitated. In Council diplomacy, physical contact was rare. But humans were different. Slowly, he reached out and shook the Admiral's hand. The negotiations began. For hours, both sides debated, argued, and exchanged information. The Council wanted guarantees, assurances that humanity would not seek revenge, that they would not become an expansionist empire. The humans, however, made their position clear. "We did not start this war," Hayes said. "You attacked first. We defended ourselves. That is all." Virak studied the human carefully. "You could have wiped us out," he admitted, "but you didn't." "Why?" Hayes smirked. "Because we're not conquerors. We don't destroy unless we have to." Virak leaned back in his chair, processing this. Every species the Council had encountered either submitted or perished. But humanity, they fought, they won, and then they stopped. It was not weakness. It was control. Virak sighed. "So, what do you want?" Hayes folded his arms. "We want peace, but if you ever come for us again, we will not hold back next time." There was no threat in his voice, no arrogance, just a simple statement of fact. The Council had a choice. Virak closed his eyes, thinking of the countless ships lost, the soldiers who had died, the fear that had spread across the galaxy. Fighting humanity again would mean total war. And this time, the Council might not survive. He exhaled and gave the only answer possible. "Then peace it is." A new era had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The meeting was over. The decision was made. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council had chosen peace instead of dominance. A formal treaty was to be signed, one that would acknowledge humanity as an independent and sovereign power in the galaxy. It would also establish a fragile truce between the Council and Earth, ensuring that war would not return. For now. But not everyone was pleased. In the Council chambers on their homeworld, tension was rising. Some species saw the treaty as a wise decision. Others saw it as surrender. "We are the rulers of the galaxy," one senator shouted, "and now we bow to humans." "We have no choice," another argued. "We attacked them and lost. If we fight again, we may not survive." High Consul Virak listened silently. He had once believed in the Council's strength, in its control over the galaxy. But the battle against humanity had changed everything. The old ways would not work anymore. "Enough," Virak said finally. His voice was calm, yet firm. "The war is over. We must accept reality. Humans are not like the others. If we treat them as enemies, they will become enemies. The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but they all knew the truth. Humanity had proven themselves, and they were not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, on Earth, the treaty signing was prepared. The event was historic. Never before had the Galactic Council treated another species as an equal. Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood at the front of the Terran delegation, watching as the Council's representatives arrived. He had fought in countless battles, seen death and destruction, but this moment felt just as important as any war. Because this was the moment humanity stepped onto the galactic stage, not as subjects, not as rebels, but as a power in its own right. Virak approached the table where the treaty lay, glancing at Hayes. "Your people, they will truly honor this peace?" he asked. Hayes nodded. "We are warriors, Virak, but we do not fight without reason. If you keep your word, so will we." The High Consul studied him for a moment, then reached for the treaty. With a single signature, everything changed. The Treaty of Sol was signed. The war was officially over. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Some celebrated. Others prepared for the future. The Council remained powerful. But now, there was another force in the universe. A force that had been tested in fire. A force that had survived. Humanity had claimed its place. And though peace had been achieved, the galaxy knew one thing for certain. If war ever returned, humans would not just endure. They would win. The Treaty of Sol had been signed. The war was over. But the galaxy would never be the same again. Across hundreds of worlds, species whispered in hushed tones about the humans. Some called them monsters, warriors who had defied an empire. Others called them survivors, beings who had fought against impossible odds and won. One thing was certain. Humanity was no longer just another species. They were now a force to be reckoned with. High Consul Virak stood in his private chambers, staring at the holographic star map before him. He traced a path with his finger, following the edge of Council space until he reached Sol, the human home system. "They are dangerous," a voice said behind him. Virak turned to see Admiral Trail, one of the few high-ranking officers who had survived the battle against the Terran fleet. "Yes," Virak admitted, "but they are also rational. They did not demand our surrender. They did not seek revenge." Drail frowned. "You trust them?" Virak shook his head. "No, but I respect them." That was the truth. The Council had fought many wars, crushed countless rebellions. But never before had they faced an enemy like humanity, an enemy that did not fight for conquest, but for survival. Drail sighed. "Some among us still want war," he warned. "They believe we should strike before the humans grow stronger." Virak's expression darkened. "If they do that, they will bring ruin upon us all." The humans had already proven they could fight the Council's best. If another war started, it would not be a simple battle for dominance. It would be a war for existence itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jonathan Hayes walked through the halls of the Terran Defense Headquarters. The war had ended, but his work was far from over. The Council had agreed to peace, but peace was fragile. Humanity had won respect, but also fear. Many species in the galaxy would never trust them. Some might even try to challenge them again. "Sir, our ship production is ahead of schedule," an officer reported. "Our defenses are being reinforced across all colonies." Hayes nodded. "Good. Keep going." The war was over, but humanity would not be caught unprepared again. They had learned their lesson. Strength was the only language the galaxy understood, and if another war ever came, humanity would be ready. The Treaty of Sol had brought peace, but peace was never permanent. The galaxy was changing, and everyone knew it. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled without challenge. Now, they had a rival, not an empire, not conquerors, but something far more dangerous. Survivors. Humans had proven they would not kneel. They would not break. They would fight until the last breath, and when the dust settled, they would still be standing. And that changed everything. On Earth, Admiral Jonathan Hayes sat in a high-security briefing room, surrounded by top military and government officials. A large holographic display showed the galaxy's star map, highlighting known Council territories and independent worlds. The war had ended, but tensions remained. "We have intelligence reports that certain factions within the Council are unhappy with the treaty," a general said. "Some believe they should strike before we grow even stronger." Hayes sighed. He had expected this. "Let them try," he said calmly. "If they want another war, we will remind them why they lost the first one." Despite the words, he did not want war. Humanity had paid a heavy price in blood to earn their place in the galaxy. But he knew one truth: peace is only possible when backed by strength. That was why Earth's shipyards continued to build. That was why their fleets trained every day. Because if the Council ever turned on them again, there would be no mercy. On the other side of the galaxy, High Consul Virik listened to the heated debates within the Council chamber. "The humans are dangerous," one senator shouted. "We must prepare for war." "And what if we lose again?" another countered. "Do you think they will spare us a second time?" Virik remained silent, observing them all. The old way of ruling through fear no longer worked. Humanity had shown that power alone was not enough. Strength, intelligence, and adaptability. That was what truly mattered. "We will not start another war," he finally declared. His voice was cold, firm, leaving no room for argument. "We will watch. We will learn. And we will adapt, just as they do." Some in the Council agreed. Others remained bitter. But the message was clear. The era of unquestioned Council dominance was over. A new balance had been formed. As the years passed, the galaxy changed. Humans did not seek to conquer, but they did not bow to threats either. They explored. They traded. They built alliances with those willing to treat them as equals. And when enemies rose against them, they fought without fear. Because the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. This was not just the rise of a new power. This was the age of humanity.